For us to maximize the progression and potential of our planche, we need to understand and acknowledge the muscles and the muscle groups that work in order to hold this planche movement. Now, simply keeping our minds focused or isolated onto the muscle fibers that are used in a planche is a very narrow-minded and naive way of perceiving the planche. Now, there's a lot of people when they ask or when you try and search up how to get into the planche, they always say you need time for your joints, your ligaments, and your tendons. So these are the insertion points of your muscles to the bone or bone to bone, right? You need to acknowledge and understand that these parts of your body need to recover and they need to be activated during your planche movement. Now, over here, I'm warming up my rotator cuffs. These guys are the muscles that stabilize the shoulder. These aren't necessarily the prime muscle groups that's consistent in the planche. They're more of a smaller muscle group that I've been focusing on just to ensure I minimize injuries on my shoulder. Now over here, I'm focusing on the shoulder, right? The lateral deltoids and your anterior deltoids. Now, how do these kind of muscles work together in order to hold yourself in that planche horizontal position? Well, if you think about it, when you extend your arms in a pronated grip, so pulling your elbows away from your midline, you are essentially, when you try and get into that planche position, that lean, your instinctual behavior of your body due to the influence of gravity, right, is your hip wants to drag down onto the ground. You've got this external weight that you need to pull up. You need your arms to pull up your hips, right? Now, understanding this, well, the anterior deltoids, their prime function is to contract and shorten such that it is responsible for the flexion. So flexion of your shoulders. So that means moving your shoulders up and down, right? Sorry, just up. Now that means that you are pulling your arm towards the ground. You're pushing away from the ground, right? So if you're trying to push your body away from the ground, then obviously that shoulder has to be isolated. Well, since we know that the planche is an isometric movement, you aren't actually changing the length. You're not actively changing the length. You're contracting your muscle by keeping it in that same length the whole time. So, knowing that, well, it's not simply just your shoulders that are working on it. You also have your biceps and also your wrist flexors, right? A lot of the muscles that hold the anterior side of your arm. So when you pronate. Now, the funny thing about this is through warming up, right, just experimenting, I realized that having a bicep pump or trying to engage my biceps, specifically the tendons around your elbow. Now, the elbows are a very sensitive area, so a lot of people that try off and start off the planche, they feel a lot of pressure on the elbow, right? The inside of the elbow. So that means that I was thinking, well, if you have your body weight forcing yourself in a straight arm position, right? You wouldn't think that your biceps, which flexes your arms inwards, you wouldn't think that at all part of the planche. Well, that's not really the case, because if you force your elbows outwards too much, well, you're extending your elbows, right? Your radius and your humerus, right? They are pulling out too far, right? So you need to contract them and keep that position in a compromise, in like an equilibrium, right? So you need to kind of contract your biceps at the same time. Now your wrist flexors, these guys are flexing the whole time while you're in that planche position. So essentially, my warm-up just really consisted of ensuring that I engaged all these muscles beforehand. Now, right after that, what I did was I started doing compound movements, and then I focused on a planche lean, right? A lean that made sure that I was almost in an excessive lean position. So it overloaded my CNS, right? So my central nervous system, just to get my body adapted to that really strong lean that you require for the planche. Now, for my workout, I personally believe the perfect planche workout is a workout that prioritizes intensity. The planche isn't an endurance exercise. It's not a workout that requires like a crap ton of duration and reps, right? A planche is a strength workout. You require strength. You require a very strong understanding of how to activate your muscles and keep that or ensure that balance, right? Now, you may think that like, well, planche seems way too much of a strength exercise. How the hell is any balance? Well, personally, I found that by doing a lot of intense holds, now forcing yourself to lean as fast as possible in the hardest planche progression that you know so far. So if it's like a tuck planche, try and lean as fast as possible in that tuck position. If it's like a straddle planche, try and lean as fast as possible. By doing that, you are increasing the intensity significantly, and thereby you're forcing your body to adapt to this position, and it makes you have like a conscious awareness of this movement. Like you're able to balance the weight of your torso and your legs at a position where you're able to lever yourself in that perfect hold. Now, these aren't just like the only parts, right? You also have your serratus anterior. So this guy has to engage your protraction of your scapula in order to maintain your hollow body. That's more so into the actual technique of the planche. But for the actual movement, right? So holding that thing, yeah, like I said, I'm a huge advocate of that strength approach. Now, for me personally, what I've been doing is I've been starting off my workouts by doing like 10 to 12 or 10 to 15 of those holds, right? About like a minute 30 in between each hold, just to ensure that I'm really overloading my shoulders, right? Then after that, I'll go into the a bit more into the bent arm planche exercises. So this was just because I wanted to learn how to do a planche push-up after learning the planche holds, and to better easy that progression, right? Now this part isn't actually necessary, but the more prioritized area would be to ensure that you're always maximizing that intensity of the planche hold. And later on, in this video, I'll show a bit of my video clips of me doing planche leans, all right? Now, the reason why I'm doing those is I'm trying to lean as far as possible. I'm trying to ensure that by leaning as far as possible, I can only hold that planche lean for maximum 3 seconds. So you may think, well, 3 seconds is hardly enough to ensure or develop volume and enough stimulus to your shoulders, right? To your muscles in that planche movement, in that hold. Well, the way you can overcome this kind of this limitation is, why not just do a crap ton of these holds in a short amount of time? So what I'm referring to is doing these holds, and so do a 3 second hold, rest 15 seconds, and do another 3 second hold, and do these repetitions for around 20 to 30 sets, right? You're really trying to overload your shoulders. And by doing so, right, you're able to adapt to that sudden or like that abrupt change, that immediate requirement for strength in that lean, right? So by leaning so excessively, you're getting used to that movement, right? That neurological connection between that particular movement and being able to lean. Because eventually, if you want to do the full planche, you need to lean that much, right? So yeah, so over here is just me doing it with an elevated source. The reason why I elevated it was because I just wanted to understand that hollow body position a bit better. So like keeping a posterior pelvic tilt engaging my abs and everything. So I wasn't able to completely lean as far as possible, but yeah, I just had to compromise in that case. But yeah, so that was essentially just my workout, and yeah, I'll see you guys around next time.